And is the video back on? Okay. So there's not a specified place in the presentation to talk about harnesses, but since a lot of you are going to be on the roof, I want to make sure everyone knows how to get into these harnesses. We have two different kinds. The yellow ones, which I have 4 of, and then the church went ahead and bought a couple more. The orange ones, so want to display them, so whichever one you get, they pretty much work the same way, but basically you want to start by finding which way is right side up. There might be some writing on the back to give you a hint as to what's right side up. There's always a clip that is on the back, so if you hold it by that clip, you kind of put it on like you would a parachute or a backpack. Hopefully we're not using them as parachutes. Hopefully they're just there just in case. But in fact, I should point out that we don't really do the kind of fall protection where you're supposed to be able to walk off the edge of the roof and catch you. We do fall restraint rather than fall arrest. So we try to size the ropes so that make sure that your rope is always sized that you can't ever walk off the roof to begin with. There are other types of ropes that they have kind of a bungee effect in them. They have some extra rope that dissipates the energy of falling, but we're just trying to set the ropes to the exact size that you can never walk off the edge to begin with. Anyway, start by putting it over your shoulders. After you've found which way is right side up, looks like you got it. We're a little backwards there. Take that back out.
There's 3 aspects. I don't know which one is the top.
Okay, so start by putting your left hand through here.
Well, I got to figure out how you found that one. They all look the same.
Yeah, so this is the back, and then you got 2 on the sides.
All right.
There you go. Once you have it around your shoulders, snap it in the front, so it's going across your chest. Yeah, and then there's adjustments so you can get it to whatever's comfortable and that you can't slip out of it. And then each leg, you bring it around, and that also has adjustments on there. And then you can slide the excess loop through like that. There's also on these yellow ones, there's sort of a belt aspect to it. So you can do the belt here, and you got the 2 legs, and you got across the chest. And where's this one go? And where's the other one? Oh, here it is. So we'll expect everyone to get themselves into the harnesses before they actually get on the roof. Then the ropes will be up there, so you climb the ladder, have someone kind of help you dismount from the ladder and onto the roof, and then when we get to the other side where there's a steep drop-off, everyone needs to connect themselves to a rope. You have 3 choices. You have the one on the back, that's the most common one to use, so that it's always kind of behind you, not your way, but there might also be situations where you decide it's convenient to hook into either side. So just make sure it's in one of those hooks, not just like on here. It's got to be in one of the designated hooks in the left side, the right side, or on your back, which usually you have to have someone sort of help you clip it in the back. It's hard to reach. So any questions about the harnesses?
I just have a question about, are the ropes equipped with a snap, or you just snap it onto that connector? Or?
Yeah, it has like a carabiner style thing that works with these loops.
So you just had your leg strapped into your waist strap. You didn't have your leg strapped into the back side of the leg strap.
Did I have it wrong?
Yeah, see that's your waist.
Oh, you're right. This is supposed to. Good catch. I guess you sort of have to have a helper there to see everything. You're right. So this goes like there's an additional belt here, and then here it is on the side. That's what I should have been snapped into. So thank you for catching that.
Sure.
How heavy are these things?
I can pass it around. They're not too bad.
The orange one looks a little less heavy, maybe.
Yeah, the orange one's a little
But
lighter weight.
they're both going to be...
This one's just got a lot of padding for comfort. The orange one's a little more utilitarian.
It's only 20 pounds.
This one is the church's.
That's pretty heavy, too.
Oh,
on the roof, you just kind of got to do it.
And so I think when I was training, you had a buddy system where two people are kind of, I'm making sure that yours is on properly, you're making sure that mine is on properly.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. So as everyone's putting on the harnesses, find someone that you can make sure theirs is right, and just like he said, you check each other out, make sure that the harness is put on properly, and not like mine with the leg going through the hip connector.
How's the ropes attached on the roof?
So I'm going to put in some anchors right after the presentation, and while you guys are kind of taking lunch, I'm going to run ahead and put in 3 anchor points. And then what you're going to do is wherever area you're working in, you want to connect to that, and probably keep it to no more than 3 people connected to one anchor. But just kind of go from one anchor to the next as you move around, and maybe even have someone else help you kind of take the other end of your rope and then move it from one anchor point to the other.
Is there more than one rope attached at a time?
Yeah, so there's going to be, there's probably going to be like 6 ropes up there to choose from.
Hello? It's not on. Let's see. Okay.
What are you anchored to?
Testing. It's not on.
Not on.
No. Okay. Now it's on. When you attach a rope, is there more than one attachment on
your body?
So there's
body?
multiple choices, but you only have to attach to one.
Okay.
So just whatever is convenient at the time. If you want to have it clipped forward because you're mostly facing up the roof, that's fine. If you're just generally walking around the roof, you might find it more convenient if someone puts it on your back. Someone asked, how are the anchors attached? They are screwed into the rafters, and it does leave a hole in the roof that we patch at the end of the installation with the flashing. But yeah, there's temporary anchors and there's permanent ones. We're going to be using the temporary ones because that's what I have. That they just get reused on each project, and then I put a flashing in. The church may end up putting some permanent ones in afterwards if they feel like they're going to need to do a lot of maintenance on the panels or something like that. But yeah, they basically attach to the rafters, which are the strongest point of the roof. So that way the screws are going to be able to hold the person back, and the anchors are not going to pop out if someone starts to lose control and start falling.
Would we be able to put permanent ones where you're putting the temporary ones, or would that not be advisable?
Yeah.
I just didn't, I didn't get the notice in time that there would be a need for permanent ones, so I didn't bring any with me.
Yeah, I belatedly, I thought, we're going to be going up there and we should be doing it in a safe fashion anyway, so we should put permanent anchors up there and have that capability that anytime we go up to check on anything up there, we're doing it in the same manner that they're doing it.
I found I need to get up there at least once a year and spray down the panels because they get pollen on them, and then that decreases efficiency. So
Doesn't the rain
just-
do the rain?
no, actually, I get up
Depends
there
how much rain
I
you
get up
get.
there with a mop and a sponge mop and a.
Okay.
And it depends how steep the roof. Like, this is a reasonable pitch, so chances are the rain's going to do a reasonably good job. There might be once a year where you want to clean all the debris that's kind of collected at the bottom of the panels from the rain washing into the bottom edges.
Pollen's sticky.
But yeah, things like pollen might just build up. Just general dust is going to build up, and it can have a 5% or more reduction in your power production. And what we want to do is pay attention to the monitoring the day before you clean it, and then have a similarly sunny day, and then clean it and see how much of a difference it makes. And that'll help you figure out how often you really need to be cleaning. If it didn't make a difference, then you say, oh, well, maybe I don't need to clean it nearly as often. But if it made a big difference, like a 10% difference, you go like, oh, maybe I should up it and do it twice or 3 times a year. I always suggest if you're going to do it once a year, do it right before the start of summer, like maybe in May, when you're starting to really get the longer days. That way they're clean as possible going into your most productive months.
And that's the end of the oak pollen season.
Yeah.
We have ash still too. I mean, I was amazed at how much ash is buried in between tiles on my
Yeah,
roof.
fires.
The rain just doesn't wash that ash off, it's
Huh.
still there.
Yeah, so bottom line, clean them as needed, and use the appropriate
So I think
personal protective equipment.
we should eventually get the permanent anchors. installed.
Yeah. So Larry's gonna be kind of in charge of installing those, and the ones he's gonna buy are gonna come with instructions how to install them. But I better get back into the presentation. So we're gonna talk about what Sunworks specializes in, which is grid-tied solar systems. We talk a little bit in the background about battery options and how Tesla Powerwall works, but what Sunworks does, and what's still the most economical way to do solar right now, is to sort of use the grid as your battery, meaning that you take your excess power that you produce during the day and send it back to the grid, and then use any power that, when the sun's not shining, you import that from the grid. And as long as you size the system right, you really only have to size for the number of panels for the average usage, not the highest amount that you would use, like you might have to do in a standalone system. You might have to size the system 2 or 3 times as big as your needs, or just have really good battery storage to account for the worst case scenario. But this is very economical because 1, you're not maintaining batteries, and 2, you are, like I said, you only have to size the system to your average usage and then use the grid as your battery, which is sort of like an unlimited battery. So looking back at our diagram of the house here, notice that you have your electrical service panel, and you have that's what's directly connected to the power lines. You have the neutral wire and the 2 line wires coming from the grid and going into the service panel through the meter and into usually a main breaker feeding all the individual breakers in the house. Here's what the panel looks like in real life. So you can see, in this case, we have the meter, and then it's kind of hard to see, but there's the main breaker at the top here, and then there's all the sub-breaker that feed the individual circuits, and they have different ratings depending on what the circuit is designed for. If they're 240 volt circuits, they're going to take up 2 of the spaces. If it's 120, it's going to take up 1 of the spaces, and then the white wire gets landed in the neutral bar, which is connected to the ground at the main service. So the neutral is going to be equivalent to ground, although you do have to distinguish them up to the main service panel. Ultimately, the neutral is also going to be the same voltage as ground at the main service panel. So at nighttime, you might have solar panels on your house, but basically they're not going to be involved in powering your home. It's going to work exactly the same way as your house did before you have solar. You're going to have power coming in from the power lines and simply powering all your 120 and 240 volt circuits. However, during the day, you have the sun shining, and in this case, you have different sources of power. You can have power coming from the grid, you can have power coming from the solar panels, it can be both. Most commonly, what's going to happen during the daytime is to make up for your nighttime usage, you size the system big enough that it's actually exporting power for most of the day, especially during the 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock when the solar is at its most productive. So you can see from the diagram, power is coming from the solar panels. It's first going to meet all the needs of your house, and then anything extra is going to go back to the grid. To me, this looks kind of similar to what you see in the Prius hybrids that you ever seen the display, and it says, this is coming from the engine, this is coming from the battery, and the power is flowing all different directions. It's the same kind of versatility here. If you are suddenly running a pool heater or charging an electric car, or something that's very electricity intensive, and the solar panels fall short at that immediate moment, you can get supplemental power from the PG&E lines. So you got multiple sources of power basically, and then again the grid is acting as your battery in this case, where the extra power is going back up the power lines and actually in real time feeding your neighbor's house. But when it goes backwards, it runs your meter backwards, and then that's how you get credit. That's how they keep tally of how much electricity you've been bringing in versus how much you've been exporting. So here's an example of a PV module. This is nominally a 60 cell module. In fact, these ones are kind of fancy. We're going to be doing something similar where you actually use half cut cells. So it's actually 120 half cut cells where it's sort of like two panels in one. You have 60 cells on the bottom and 60 cells on the top. And because they're cut in half, each cell has half as much amperage, but then they're parallel together and ends up being the same amount of power, but with the advantage that it has better shade properties, that you can shade some cells on the bottom without affecting the top half. Because when cells are run in series, it's basically whichever cell is the most shaded, it's as though the entire panel is shaded as much as the worst case cell. So the fact that the top and bottom are run as separate series circuits, there's a little bit of independence between the top half and the bottom half. But anyway, we still consider this a 60